Creating units in the editor, it's always a good idea to key the program to the folder and the scenario that you're going to be working on. And if you go to your main folder, to the OPART folder, and then down to your scenario folder, you'll have all these separate folders, and you can see you can create your own, key to that, and that comes in handy later on. Once you do that, you can exit out of this and open the editor by clicking on this button here, and you'll see it opens up to a new scenario in the map editor. If you're starting a new scenario and you need to create units, you have to go to Edit, Forces, and this will bring up the Force editor. This always opens up to the available systems, and if you right click in that window, you'll get all the different categories. If you click here, you can display the current force. Since it's a new scenario, there's nothing in, so there's nothing there. Keep in mind to keep your eye down here on this information panel. It tells you what all these buttons are for, because these buttons here will change depending on what box you're in here. So let's create the unit, and the first thing you have to do is add in some equipment. So go to whatever category you want and pick something and put it in there. Now you have the unit. Here you can change the name. Here you can change the size of the unit. Here you can change the color of the unit. Let's pick this one. And down here, this button will let you set the readiness, supply level, and proficiency for the unit. These are all for the unit. There's also the same settings for, or similar settings for, the force. And now we'll have to look at the force, and you'll see here we have, if we had more units in, all the units would be on this side, all the formations would be on this side. Since we're just starting, we've only got the one. You can name your force to whatever you want, and you need to assign each unit to a formation, otherwise the scenario will be invalid. And at the very start here, when you're doing the first one, all you do is left click and it'll assign this unit 1 to the first formation. If you click this star button here, this will give you the formation information. And this is a little confusing, I know, because there's only one unit and it's hard for you to see what's going on, but later we'll get to it. In this formation box, you can set the formation proficiency, the formation supply level, and the support level, and you can change the formation name to whatever you want. Now that that's done, you have one valid unit for force 1. Click this button here and this will take you to force 2. You do all the same stuff right here, so we'll flip through it real quick. Add in your equipment. You can change your unit size, your unit color, your unit name, and then you can set your different levels here, and then click this star button. That'll get you to the formation, or rather click this flag button. That'll get you to this force side so that you can assign this one. You can change the force name if you want, and this then the star button will let you change the proficiency, the formation supply level, the formation support level, and the formation name if you want. Now that you've got that done, you have what's known as a valid scenario, because you have at least one valid unit on each side. And you can then go to the edit and the deployment editor, under which you do most of the work. But when you first start, you can't open this deployment editor. You have to go through forces. Now let's take a look at an existing scenario where all of this will come a lot clearer. You go to open a scenario, and at the beginning, when we keyed the box that picks the scenario, that's where we're getting this. Otherwise it opens to something else, so that's why I always do that at the beginning. So open up the scenario that you want to work on, and you'll be able to go right to edit deployment, and then you can, from there you can go to edit the forces, and you'll see here now we have a completed scenario here. So we have all the units on the left side, all the formations on the right side, and you can scroll through all the way. This is a large scenario, so it's got a ton of units, as you can see. And one thing that is good to do if you're working on a large scenario like this is you can make a lot of these templates. You see we've got a formation here that's called templates, and each of these are different units, as you can see, that are repeated continuously throughout this long order of battle. And these units are not units that are in play. All you do is in the formation box, you give them an entry turn beyond the scenario. This scenario I think is 204 turns, so in this case the designer set them all to arrive at turn 205. Set an entry place. They'll never come in. The only place that they're used is in this in the force editor, so that you have something that you, if you're using repeatedly, you can use all the time. And that's easily accomplished by you pick which one you want. You hit G for good, the G key on the keyboard, and that copies this equipment on the left into a buffer, and then you can scroll down to another unit that you want to use the same equipment in, and you hit A for Apple, A on the keyboard, and watch this. It changes it all. It just brought in all that equipment. So that's an easy way to do many units that are similar, and then you can go in and make minor adjustments if you so desire. Now to create new units, you'll see we've got one here that's called blank. It's just a blank unit in the template file, and it only has one line of equipment, and that's because when you're creating a new unit, it often makes it very easy. You hit G on the keyboard to copy it, and then say you want to add a new unit to this formation. You hit this button here for copy. That makes a copy of that unit, and you can tell that because it has this plus sign here in the unit name. And then hit A. Now you've only got a unit with one type of equipment, and you can click here to go to all the equipment categories and start adding in whatever you want. And it's a good way to make units from scratch. And if you don't need the original entry that you had there, which was Light Rifle Squad, click here, hit 0, boom, it's gone. So it's very easy to make units that way. You just copy, paste in your blank equipment. If you have one, it's a good idea to make one, and there you've got your new unit. You can make units anywhere in the order of battle that you want, and move them around by right clicking on the unit. You see when I right clicked on it, it disappeared. Didn't really. Put it in the buffer, and then say you want to move it down here to this formation, right click again on top of the unit that you want it to be above, or you want it to be placed above, and there you see right clicking it placed it right in there. If you make a mistake or you don't want a unit, there's a delete the unit button here. Click on this and you'll see that unit's gone. It's also nice to know that sometimes this undo button works, and there you see it did in this case, and in some cases it doesn't work. I've never categorized or made a list of when and where it doesn't work, but in the map editor it works a lot, and here in the force editor it also works most of the time. So keep that in mind. If you make a mistake, you might be able to hit your undo button up here to get it to correct that mistake. So now let's look at creating a new formation. Oh wait, I should show you this one more thing. All the units that you make are created out of cadres, and always at the end, we just scrolled all the way down to the end of the units list, and always at the end, beyond the end, there's a cadre. So you'll see we're at the end, we can't go any farther. This is the last unit in the order of battle, but if you click to go to the next unit, you'll see it brings up a cadre. This is a blank unit that you can use to create units with. All you have to do is add in some equipment, and you're good with making a new unit. You can make all these adjustments, change the name. You can then go back. You can see that it's unassigned. You can cut it by right clicking it and add it in somewhere else, or you can create a new formation for it, and I'll show you how to do these new formations now. Depending on where you want to put the formation in the order of battle, remember there's no real hierarchy here. There's only formations. Formations within formations. There's no such thing in this game system. There's only all these separate formations. So their order is usually generated by whatever the designer's preference was. Oftentimes they're from north to south, or from highest organization to lowest organization. But oftentimes you'll see in a scenario they're from north to south. That's one easy way to keep things straight in the designer's mind as they're doing things. There's also a lot of times order of battle documentation that designers get are also might be arranged that way, and sometimes the whole order here is arranged along the lines of whatever order of battle documentation they're going by. But whatever the case is, say for example, if you wanted to add another formation in between these two, you can copy this unit. That you can see that just kept it right in this formation. But now left click on this formation name and you've unassigned it. Left click again and it'll let you reassign it to that one or create a new formation. Now generally when you're doing a new scenario, this will just come up with a number, whatever the next available numbered formation is. If there's currently 200 formations in the scenario, it'll just name this 201st formation. In this case, there are previous formations that were in that have been deleted, and the game system keeps those deleted formations in its memory and throws it right up there again. Sometimes that's convenient, sometimes it's not, but it's no big deal, because if you don't want that formation name, you change it to something else. One thing you have to keep in mind when you're working in this order of battle is a lot of times things don't update themselves because this is a very old program. So cycle out of that unit, cycle back to it, and then you'll be able to bring up its formation. It only has the one unit that we just did, you'll see, and this is the formation that we just created. And you can make all your changes here to that formation, to proficiency, supply, the support level, the support level, and then go back and see what you've done. You can add in more units by the copy, and continue working on that way with adding in formations. Also, you can cut and paste formations if you want to rearrange them in a different order. But if you've got a scenario that is completed or very well along the way to being completed, it's not a good idea to cut and paste formations. That's done by right clicking on the formation and on the formation name here, because if you do that, it erases the deployments of the units and the objectives, and unless you really want to do that and redo that work, I wouldn't suggest cutting and pasting formations, because it just makes more difficult work for you down the line. Along those lines, it's a good idea to have your entire order of battle arranged the way that you want it before you start placing units on the map and assigning formations. But that's not always the most convenient thing to do. Oftentimes we do one formation at a time or a couple formations at a time. So I'm just bringing that up because if you decide that you want to reorganize things by cutting and pasting the formations, you could erase a lot of work that you had previously done. Now, something else that you need to know about creating a new formation in an existing scenario, this should be that formation that we were just in should be the one that it's keyed on, but it's not, because like I said before, this old game system doesn't update itself or refresh itself very well at points. So normally if you click on this star button up here, you'll get that formations report, but in this case you'll see that it doesn't because it hadn't refreshed itself. But all you have to do is click on that and you'll see the hour, if you could see it there, the hourglass flipped, it updated. Click the button again and now you've got the formation that we were just looking at. You can deploy the units easily. They're selected up here. This is an air unit, so you have to deploy it on an airfield, and you'll see that in this deployment editor, this button up here phases through a bunch of different choices that you have. Place the unit. If you don't want the unit there, right click on it, remove it. Then you can place it somewhere else. Click the wrong button. And you can place it somewhere else. I keep clicking the wrong button, sorry guys. Right click to place. And the last thing about new formations is the scenario will be invalid unless you assign an objective, at least one objective to each formation. It's a parameter within the game. If there's not at least one objective for each formation, the scenario will be invalid. You can still play it, but it'll give you invalid errors. So all you need to do to know about that is just up here, cycle through until you get your place objective, place your one objective, and then that's done.